We are back. Thank you again, members and witness. Alan, your office provided us, as per the request from our Vice Speaker, a statement of your financial statement, basically. Are you...
We're looking for it right now.
I know your CFO is not here, but maybe just for the record, can you kind of just summarize? You don't have to go down each line item, but maybe what your current notes on receivables are. Well, let me just ask a question. Maybe you can point it out to me where it's at. Your current your cash. I can't find the right financial term for it, but what cash you have on hand right now? Is that your total current assets, or? I see it, cash.
That would be cash and cash equivalents, sir.
We'll look at the audited figure based on, I think this is September 30, 2011. On the first page, the audited figure shows 8,324,000. Is that correct?
Would you repeat that again? Sure.
Your cash and cash equivalent on the second, on the right side,
right,
is the September 30, 2011 audited. That's last year. Do you have a more current? Oh, I'm sorry. The August 31st, 2012 is the unaudited. Shows that's the most current. Although it's unaudited, on the first page, shows what your most current cash and cash equivalent is that CUC has, and it's a little over 9 million. No?
You know, there's a lot of different things that go into preparing financial statements, and your assets can include a lot of different components. You know, I think it would be better to have Charles Warren, our CFO here, for a lot of the direct questions on this. He oversees and puts together these financial statements, which can give you a better idea. Because cash and cash equivalents as a total can be very misleading. As of that date, that's a snapshot in time as far as receivables for that month. Those amounts are offset in your other, in further down as you talk about your liabilities in a financial statement.
Correct.
So
I'm going to withdraw.
I think it'd be better to have the CFO here for a lot of that discussion.
I'm going to withdraw because the CFO is not here. I'm going to withdraw that question. Okay, let me go back then. Just several things I've gathered from CUC's review, the report or the point of significant concern from Mr. Tiberius Macano, and other comments that were made during the testimony is that CUC's financial status is not that great, meaning you have a lot of receivables, a lot of you are owed a lot. As a matter of fact, as of today's newspaper, there was your CFO came out and says that the government is kind of behind in their payments, upwards of something like $10 million. So there's, I think that was in today's news. I didn't read the whole, just saw the headlines. That there is concern that has been raised about how CUC can meet the terms of the contract, essentially to be able to meet the guaranteed payments, guaranteed price, to be able to meet the operation and maintenance fee and the production fee based on the amount of the generated capacity that we have to fork out. And I guess the general concern is, you know, if CUC is gonna be made to pay for the full 50 megawatts when it only consumes, when there's only, let's say, less than that, 30 megawatts of demand or usage, how can we be able to pay for the rest? How would CUC be able to pay for the 50 megawatts if you're only charging your customers or asking customers to pay for 30 megawatts? Can you answer that?
I can generally answer, and let me back up a little bit and kind of frame the answer to that. As you know, that CUC is an autonomous agency. We're a public corporation, and we're regulated. We're regulated through the PUC, and we're non-profit. So we're just here to serve the people of CMI. With that, as our rates are set and as they are approved through the Public Utilities Commission, we're designed to break even. Okay? It's okay to have money left over at the end of the year, because every year you're back in front of the PUC, and that's taken into consideration in the next rate setting period. So with that, going into this, as we look at our financial health, as we look at our financial statements, you know, your assets are going to give you one story, but it may not be able to give you the operational side of your financial position. And that's called your working capital and your reserve levels, your amount to respond to unanticipated events within your system or financially. In addition with that comes our rate revenues, which is the only revenue CUC has is what our customers provide us in their rates. And we could have a long discussion about the level of rates, because we all agree that they're significant. That is driven by the nature of our generation facilities on the power generation side, and that they're diesel fuel generated. They're diesel fuel fired. That's expensive. That's 70 to 80% of our operating budget, depending on the price of fuel at a given time. So with that, as we look to the future, anything that's in a power purchase agreement, this agreement that we're discussing, what we've done in the past, what we may do in the future, is going to be supported by rates, by our consumer rates. And that is exactly what we would anticipate would occur here if we needed to fund the levels that the PPA, under the subject PPA, is calling for. Our current financial position, and you alluded to it in receivables of some of our largest customers, which are some government agencies. Yes, we have a large receivable. It's over $10 million. That includes the current billings as well as some past due. Now, the central government's doing a pretty good job there. The schools and the hospital, not so much. And how does that impact our financial statements? Well, we're spending less, of course. You know, we're trying to keep going, and the way we do that is we defer our maintenance. We don't buy parts and supplies like we need to. So that's how we get to our operational position, where we are with money, what our needs are, where our shortfalls are, and then how they may reflect to a financial statement. The financial statement may not tell you everything you need to know about your operational health and your cash flow.
There was a question in there, I guess, and I think the question was, how are we going to pay for energy that we have to buy but we're not consuming? If our peak demand for any certain period of time is 30 megawatts and we're required to pay for 50, how can CUC pay for it?
Any requirement in a power purchase agreement would be funded by the consumers. In other words, what those costs were, whether it was a take and pay clause, as I think you're referring to, would have to be reflected in the rates.
I like how you worded that. You're basically stating that the rates would have to be adjusted to accommodate that. In other words, rates may have to be raised.
Rate revenue is CUC's only source of revenue.
I take that as a yes. Thank you. Before I turn it over to other members, something I forgot to ask last time you were here. Alan, you're aware that years ago, a bill was passed into law stating that CDA would have, I think, preferred stock in CUC's assets. I don't recall the percentage, but I think in that legislation, in that law, there was requirements regarding if CUC's assets were to be sold, that preferred stock, I think is what it was, would have to be, paid off, if you will. In this case, where CUC maybe will be inheriting a new power plant, do you know how this may affect that agreement? And I forgot the name of that agreement, but it was a CUC CDA something agreement. Have you looked into that and how this contract would affect that document, that legal document?
I have not. I have not looked into that. I'm aware of the agreement generally, but I have not looked at those provisions, sir.
Okay, I guess we may have to check into that and how this contract may affect it, because CUC is not entirely owned by CUC, and the other agency that has a say in this matter has not even been asked to the table. So maybe that's something we can look into. I'll yield for now for other members. Rep. Torres, did you have a question? Recognize Representative Torres.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Fletcher, since when did you get involved with the PPA negotiation? When was this?
It was either late June or early July, right in that, and right at the end of June or early July, is my recollection.
Yeah, because I'm going through the document that CUC provided us. Your name is all over in here, that you are directly either sending an email to the economy.com or to the guy that is with the MAN company generator. And yeah, I agree that the recent that I have here, or the earliest, is July 6. Now, during the Senate hearing, you told us that you're not aware of, or much aware of the deal or negotiation of this power purchase agreement. And I think that you mentioned that the deal is not in the best interest for the CNMI. I have a sheet here that you sent the governor a draft letter, and I like to read that. Draft from you. From you as the acting executive director to Governor Fitel. And this is predated, a draft predated August 3rd. The Commonwealth Utilities Corporation has had an opportunity to review the final draft purchase or PPA between CUC and Saipan Development LLC. As you are aware, CUC has offered technical and economic analysis during the negotiation. The proposed PPA is to build, own, operate, and transfer a 50 megawatt base load power generation plant. The goal of the agreement is to lower costs to consumers and to provide a new stable base load power supply, and to attract future economic development such as the proposed ship repair facility. As you know, CUC bears a poor credit worthiness and distressed financial standing. The proposed agreement to finance and build a new plant provides consumers a viable option for stabilizing power supplies with a new, more reliable physical plant. In addition, the PPA is intended to produce power by 10% or greater efficiency, with the express goal of reducing the cost of electricity to consumers by a corresponding amount. Finally, you requested my thought on the structure of the agreement. It has been my experience in working for utilities that major policy decisions and agreements such as this PPA are typically signed by a utility governing body, its boards of directors. CUC has long operated without a board of directors, and to overcome this complication, the governor has assumed these powers This is supported by the executive order. As a result, it is feeding that the governor would execute the document to ensure a durable agreement. Now, there's never a mention in here that you found the agreement to be not in the best interest. You literally agreeing to the governor. And you know, had you recommend to the governor outright and stand on your feet that this deal is not good for the Commonwealth, you send this draft to the governor a day before, you know, in preparation for your meeting in the morning. And you told him that you'll be seeing him soon, but then the governor responded to you and says, thank you, Alan, thank you for your confidence and support, meaning that you agree with the governor signing the agreement. So what are we doing here? Arguing if, you know, the head of the CUC is agreeing, and I don't know, he didn't put any objection to the, he didn't object or advise the governor not to sign this because you're all going to be in trouble. I rest my case for now.
Chairman, was there a question in there first so he can answer? Or it's just a statement? Chairman, can you be on push the...
Sorry. You know, it's a question. I think he has to respond to maybe an accusation or question. I'm waiting for him to dispute my...
he's listening to see what's the question. Do you want to respond now?
I'd be happy to, and thank you, Representative. Appreciate that. Let me put this in context. And I'm going to start back, since you talked about the Senate hearing, you know, back on August 16th, and out of that 3-hour conversation, there was a lot talked about. Let me tell you how things occurred during this process. In late June or July, when we were first included in this was long after the March 27th agreement, which CUC did not know about. We attended the first few meetings with SDLLC. After about July 9th or 10th, we were not involved in any direct negotiations. We did supply technical analysis and preliminary economic analysis over the discussion period in the month of July. And I think I was consistent with that, talking about that. Throughout the month of July, and during the different meetings that I attended with the negotiating committee, this was primarily AAGs, CUC consistently talked about the need for more analysis, and that we needed to look into a variety of issues within the power purchase agreement.
Privilege?
Now,
You gonna ask a question or just to
I just
clarify?
want to clarify something.
Okay,
I think...
state your privilege, please.
Thank you. I think at this point, you know, Congressman Torres was asking about your involvement in the contract. Because in the Senate hearings before the Senate Committee on Public Utilities, Transportation and Communications, you told the lawmakers that your involvement was only up to July 10. But when we go through the materials that have been transmitted to us, your involvement has been everywhere, even up to the day that the contract was going to be signed. So I think, we're trying to ascertain and to try to make sure that we understand that your involvement was up until July. Or, in fact, you said, and it was in the Tribune, I was not in that hearing, and I did not see the journal, but through the report by Tribune, you said that you told the lawmakers, quote, Fletcher told lawmakers he and other CUC personnel were aware of the plan to enter into a power purchase agreement, but that stopped on or before July 10th. I guess, right now you can go around and, go through all of the meetings, but we want to know, when did your involvement stop? I guess, Mr. Chairman? Oh, you for now.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. I think he just answered you before you asked the question, though, Vice. He said, as far as the negotiations with SDLLC, there was between Fletcher and SDLLC. All that stopped at about July 10th, is what I heard you say. You went on further to say that after July 10th, your involvement was with the negotiating team at the Attorney General's office. Is that correct so far? What I just clarified?
That's correct. Not at the Attorney General's office, but with members of the Attorney General's office.
That's
yes.
what I meant to
Yes.
say. Members of the Attorney General
That's
negotiating team.
We were not involved in the direct negotiations with SDLLC after about that date.
Thank you. So you clarified it before the question was asked. But anyway, after that, your involvement again
Mr.
continued.
Chairman.
Let me just finish. As I heard it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was limited to a review of the contract, the proposed power purchase agreement, and wherein you had provided your concerns to the negotiating team. Is that a fair statement? Sometimes I forget what I'm saying, that's why I have to finish.
So, Mr. Chairman, that
Is
only
that
shows
correct?
that he was
Just
involved.
yeah, but I think
After July 10th.
That's basically correct. We had input with the negotiating committee as asked or by email, whether it was the AG or other members of the other AAGs that were involved, and provided what information we could to try it. But as far as the contract itself and legal sufficiency, we're not attorneys. That's what the Attorney General's office does.
okay. No, before the raise the privilege, you were explaining it forward, and I allowed the Vice Speaker to interject. Were you going to say something further? Because I was kind of waiting for what you were going to say. Do you still remember?
Yeah, I think I was in the middle of the story, talking
Please
about the
continue.
context of the memo that Representative Torres referred to. And it said, so during July, we were involved with the members of the AAG in many of the discussions that took place. These were not with SDLLC. They were within that group. Some of them even happened at our office. Some happened in other locations. We were asked to provide technical information and what analysis we could, and we did, with the concept of having this, of bettering this agreement. Now, please remember, and this is an important fact, that when we first met with this agreement back in late June or early July, whatever that first meeting was, the PPA was a finished agreement that was handed. So we were, this obviously whatever occurred beforehand occurred. That's when CUC was brought into it. So we were then responding to an agreement that was there. So we tried to provide analysis, tried to provide what support we could in order to move the agreement, in order to have an effect on the agreement, I should say. As time went on in July, and this was later confirmed by one of the Assistant Attorney Generals, we had a limited role. I mean, there were other discussions taking place, and so as staff for CUC, we understand our role, and that is a technical role. That's an implementation role. It's not a policy-making role. That's for our board of directors. So as we move forward with the agreement and in time towards the end of July, we discovered that the agreement was moving forward towards signature. On August 2nd, I met with the governor and the former attorney general and was asked to support the agreement or sign the agreement. I respectfully declined to sign the agreement, as I didn't think it was appropriate. I counseled that there was more work that was needed, there was more analysis that was needed on the agreement. The discussion of a memo came up, and it may have been the former attorney general that brought it up. I don't recall how it was initiated. And whether we could look at it, some memo of support for the governor as he moved forward with this policy decision. Once again, it's a policy decision. And that is how the draft memo came to be. So this was on August 2nd, I believe, either August 1st or 2nd. This is August 3rd. It was done that morning as a draft. It was never finalized. It was never signed. It is a draft memo, and that is the preface of it. In that memo itself, and there are many points of it, I drew no conclusions and I made no recommendations.
You said it's
the memo was written as a draft form in order to provide that support.
Can you state the part, or may I restate it? You said it was a draft memo. Is that correct? A draft, meaning not finalized. That's how I see it, or unsigned. Is that correct? It's a draft.
The memo that I sent to the governor, I believe the former attorney general, was in draft form. It was watermarked as a draft. It appears in your information, in your information package. It was never finalized. It was never signed.
So, if it was never signed, did you ever sign it? The draft, did it become final draft and signed draft, I guess? Signed memo?
No. Not that I know of. I did not.
And that is the letter that is being referenced right now. This draft unsigned memo. That's what all these comments were about, what came out in the news.
That is correct, sir. I think that's what the Representative Torres is referring to, yes. That's what he read.
Thank you. Representative De La Cruz.
Thank you,
Excuse
thank
me,
you,
I have
Chairman.
my hand up. Can I be recognized now?
Would you like to yield, sir?
How you now, Chairman?
Vice, go ahead.
Thank you. Let's go back again to that memo, Mr. Fletcher. The memo regarding the proposed purchase power agreement. Before your meeting with the governor, because there was going to be a meeting with the governor at 11 a.m., you sent him the draft memo. Did you carry that, or did you send it by email, or how did you send it? Did you have a meeting with the governor the next day at 11 o'clock on your memo?
No, ma'am. I believe this was sent by email.
All right. So it was sent by email. The governor responded back and said, "Thank you, Alan. Thank you for your confidence and support." Were you in the meeting when you finally inked the agreement?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And when just before you inked the agreement, signed the agreement, did you tell the governor not to sign the agreement?
Thank you for the question. At the meeting, which there were other people
Answer
attended.
my question.
I will, ma'am. Let me put it in context, please. The governor again gestured or indicated to me if I was willing, if I wanted to sign the agreement.
Answer the question.
I did not
Did
sign
you
the
say,
agreement.
Governor, do not, NOT, do not sign the agreement? Did you do that?
No, ma'am,
All right?
I did not,
Leave it
nor
at
was
that.
I asked to give my opinion.
Excuse me? Who is the person that the governor relies on when it has to do with the utilities? Who does he rely on to give him the advice before he takes action on any contract? Let's say in this case it was a contract. And it was a very, very important contract, mind you. You mean you sat in there and you did not say anything to the governor? Governor, do not sign the memo. I mean the agreement. You said you did not say anything, right? Now, you were beginning to say that you were going to talk about you not being the authority to sign that agreement. Of course, because you advised him in the last paragraph, it was very, very clear. CUC has long operated without a board of directors, and to overcome this complication, the governor has assumed these powers, and this is supported by executive order. As a result, it is fitting that the governor would execute the document to ensure a durable agreement. I yield for now.
I would like to comment on that last paragraph that you just stated. I want to
Mr.
raise a
Chairman?
question. That raises more questions.
Oh, okay, to
May
raise
I?
a question,
Yes.
not to give your opinion on it.
No, I want to raise a question. I do have an opinion, but I want to see, I won't even state what my opinion is right now.
We will be discussing and you will be given a chance to state your opinion, Mr. Chairman, when we have the session.
I think a lot of opinions have been made during the course of this
I'm sorry,
hearing.
Mr. Chairman, we are getting our facts together before we deliberate on the issue.
That is correct, Vice. Can you do me a favor and reread that again, please, Vice? Please, that last section. Or maybe I can read it if you...
Can we just go for a brief recess and I will provide. I'm so sorry that I didn't
just...
afford you a copy of this. Staff?
Yeah, I'll return it. This draft memo states CUC has long operated without a board of directors, and to overcome this complication, the governor has assumed these powers. This is supported by executive order. As a result, it is fitting that the governor would execute a document to ensure a durable agreement. I'm not going to presume, assume, or give my opinion. I want to ask Mr. Fletcher what you meant by this.
As I mentioned from the meeting the day before, that the agreement needed more work and it needed more analysis. And I was respectfully declining to sign the agreement. And that last portion of that paragraph, in context of the issue, was a respectful way to decline signing the agreement, leaving the governor to make that policy decision if he so chose.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. I think that's very clear. It was a policy decision, and you are not a policy maker. The board assumes that role. In the absence of a board, the governor has assumed that role. I think that's, yeah, I guess, now I hear you saying that's why that was stated. The governor does have the authority through the executive order to sign the agreement. So it's basically acknowledging that you don't have the authority to sign it, but that he does. Is that how I interpret what you just said? You did quantify or qualify yourself by saying that you also offered recommendations that stated you did not wish to sign it. And I think we do have an email where you stated clearly that please take my name out of this document. This is a policy decision that normally boards make policy decisions, and because you are not the board, I do not wish to have my name on there. I think I can't find that, but I do recall reading an email to that effect, and therefore you, Governor, are the policymaker here, and your name should be in there. There was an email to that effect. Correct, Mr. Fletcher?
I don't recall the email you're discussing, but you know the memo kind of infers that, yes. You know, and as I said, you know, from the August 2nd meeting, as we moved into the August 3rd signing, and as we look at the whole process of the discussion period in July on the proposed agreement, looking at this memo needs to be looked at in context of the whole, not an individual sentence. CUC consistently advised for more analysis throughout the period, and we'll stand by that. The agreement was moving forward, and we wanted to provide as much as we could to get it into a good usable form. We made some headway, actually.
One last question. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me yield at this point.
Yeah, can I get back to you? Well, Representative Tep, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Because of what's just been mentioned, so that I'm also clear, Mr. Fletcher mentioned that in sometime around early part or mid part of July, that you did provide quote-unquote preliminary technical analysis. Is that correct? You did provide to the negotiating team of the PPA a preliminary technical analysis?
Yeah, that was the economist.com memo. I believe that was July 27th or so. Yeah.
That's about within that time frame, and within that time frame, that's around July. So according to testimonials from Attorney General's office, they became aware of this a possible PPA and shipyard venture in about December 2011. And so from within that time frame, December 2011 up to about July, that's about almost seven month period. Within that time frame is what I'm looking at. And then, so how long did it take CUC to do a preliminary technical analysis that you provided? How long did it take you to do a preliminary? When were you asked to provide some sort of a technical analysis on the PPA to the team?
Well, one, I'm not sure we were ever asked to. I think we just did it to try to determine some of the finer points of the proposed agreement. Now, as you go back in time to, you mentioned last December forward, we too heard about a shipyard facility. In fact, a couple of contractors came out, IAP Worldwide, I believe, and USP&E, a Florida and a Texas firm who deal in this type of work. Visited our power plant. We sat around a table. They talked about possibly a shipyard facility. I'm not sure what month that in. That could have been April. That could have been a little bit before. At that time, CUC looked at that as that group being one of the many types of investor groups we have come through every year that we show the plant and that we talk about what our production capacities are. So sometime in July we actually looked at that. We did back of the envelope type analysis early July, but the economist.com were brought in during that time because we were fact checking with them engine efficiency levels and different estimates on plant dollars.
Thank you. So what I'm looking at is that some sort of a timeline, and according to the testimonials from the Attorney General's office, they became aware of some investment in July, and that is other than other potential investment. The PPA and the shipyard came into the picture for the Attorney General. On the PPA specifically, and this is testimony from the Attorney General's office, they examined in April the PPA. I don't know what were they examining. I guess they were formulating and they were talking about some legal and perhaps technical stuffs. And in June, this is like an 8-month period. In June, CUC and even the special attorney for the Governor Jim Stump indicated in his testimonials that they also looked further into the PPA, and they had some not reservation, but more specifically significant areas of concern were brought up. And that's why I asked, so when were you asked to provide the preliminary or any technical analysis? And you mentioned perhaps in July, is that mid or early part of July?
Yeah, like I said, it was either the last few days of June or the early part of July. And early July is when the first face-to-face meetings that I ever attended with the SDLLC occurred.
That specific technical analysis that you provided to the team, how long did it take you to formulate?
I'm not sure on that. I mean, the preliminary analysis
Yes, the preliminary
that was done
analysis
is like I said, we had done back of the envelope trying to get a feel for the PPA, talking with economist.com on engine configurations and what that means. They generated their letter, I think it was the 27th, but of course they're looking at it started a little ahead of that.
These are only the technical part of that.
I'm trying to answer specifically and put
Right.
it,
Never mind the legal. I'm just talking about the technical part. I guess if you want to submit legal as part of it, but my thinking is the mechanical, the power plant itself, and all the other factors or issues that will go into the decision to make this sound PPA. So you provided, how long did you put together some sort of a technical analysis for the team?
We did not put together any technical analysis like you're discussing. We did the preliminary economic analysis.
The preliminary economic
analysis. We had
analysis.
Conversation with the negotiating team, but what you're discussing on a technical analysis of the power purchase agreement,
So let me.
I'm not sure. I think back in early July, in one of the email report or status report, we recommended that there be a lot more analysis on all the points you're reaching.
So your preliminary analysis took you for about a month, 2 months?
Not really a time frame. I think it was ready when
It
it was
doesn't
ready.
have to be accurate, just...
I'm not sure how I can answer that. It occurred during that month of July.
Within June, July, so say a couple of months, a month.
Thank you.
Yeah, that, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the day, we first saw the power purchase agreement, when I first became involved in it. That was, like I said, either the last few days of June or early July. That's the first we saw of it and began working with those sections, yes.
I'm trying to verify myself here because the Attorney General's office in July, mid part of July, these are the team, and this is a testimony from the Attorney General office a few days ago, also asked the Attorney General, Buckingham, to further do a legal examination on the document. That's why I'm asking you on the preliminary assessment of, I guess, the mechanical part versus the legal part of this assessment. So it took about significant or preliminary assessment about a couple of months, if not 9 months, if not 8 months. The reason why I'm asking that is that, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned in his draft letter dated July 2nd, Mr. Chairman, and can you correct me if the last part of the sentence is that the nice way of asking the governor not to put his signature, but that the governor does that in lieu of the emergency power and emergency declaration. And correct me, Mr. Chairman, your last sentence of that, I don't have the letter in front, the draft letter, says to ensure a measurable, did I hear that correctly? To ensure a measurable agreement?
Sorry, I don't have the document. I returned it back to the Vice Speaker.
As a result, this is the draft. I'm only looking at the last sentence. It is fitting that the governor would execute the document to ensure a durable agreement. You're very kind. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice, do you wish to continue?
No, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fletcher, I'm looking at the draft memo that is being discussed. You stated earlier, and this is the August 3rd draft. All right. You stated earlier that it was sent to the governor and the former Attorney General via email.
Yeah, that's my recollection, yes.
Okay. It appears to me that this memo that you sent to the two individuals is very subtle in nature. It neither gives a positive statement to the governor nor a negative statement to the governor and to the former AG. In other words, you were merely stating that it is the governor's position. It is a policy called absent board of directors for CUC. So, in no way do I see it as saying that it is a good contract or it is a bad contract. About what time on August 3rd do you recall sending this memo to Mr. Buckingham and the governor? Do you recall?
No, I don't.
Was it prior to
It could have been late. It could have been late on August 2nd, or it was early on August 3rd. I don't recall.
Let me refresh the question. Was it prior to the governor and Mr. Buckingham signing off on the PPA?
Yes.
Okay. All right. On that same day, do you recall what time they signed the PPA? Early afternoon, late afternoon?
No, it was a late morning. I recall it was
Late
either
morning?
10 or 11 o'clock. I'm not exactly sure what time. Right about in there.
Okay. On that same day, on that Friday, you sent out an email at around 4:53 p.m. to Mr. Charles Warren and Mr. Wallen Young. And it's a very short email. It's a couple of paragraphs. And let me read it out. This is the email to the two gentlemen. Today, Governor Fitio executed a PPA for a new 15-megawatt fuel-fired power plant. Essentially, it is the agreement we have all worked on for the last month. And I have attached what I believe is the final version. I believe the final version is your attachment to the two individuals' email, correct? While the agreement has come a long way, thanks to all your inputs, it could use more work and analysis. For your information, CUC, which is me, since you, Mr. Young, and Mr. Warren are gone, did not sign the agreement. You did not sign the agreement, Mr. Fletcher. Publicly, I will explain that significant policy agreements should be entered into by the governing body or board of directors. In this case, the governor. And then on the last sentence, it states, while it may shorten my tenure, I shared with His Honor. Do you always address the governor as His Honor, Mr. Fletcher?
Many times, yes, or Mr. Governor, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I shared with His Honor that the agreement needed more work in general terms and economic analysis. Signed, Alan. So you have indicated to the governor that this power purchase agreement needed more work. Is that correct? Prior to his signature on the PPA.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it appears to me that what you have stated today and in the past has been consistent with what CUC has stated to this body and in other meetings held with regards to the PPA. It appears that you have tried to inform the governor that maybe this is not the right time to sign off on the PPA. My only disappointment, Mr. Fletcher, is that on your memo to the governor, emailed to the governor and to Mr. Buckingham, is that the words that you used on the email to Mr. Young and Mr. Warren, you did not use in your memo. And so that is basically my only concern. I don't know whether you overlooked or, as I stated, it should sound very subtle in that you did not want to raise ire of the governor. Mr. Fletcher, can you explain to the members here, what did you mean specifically on the email to Mr. Young and Mr. Warren when you stated that it may shorten my tenure? Do you have plans
Mr.
to
Chairman,
resign from CUC?
privilege.
What was your
State your privilege.
your
Can
thoughts?
we just get a copy of, can we just recess, just so that we can get a copy of what the representative is referring to? I don't have a copy.
I have no objection.
Can you just state again the date of the email? And
Do you have
I think we have it, which is,
I'm
we don't
sure
have
that we
numbered
but-
pages, so it's going to be very difficult to.
Here's the copy. Have a copy, Mr. Chair, and have everyone.
That's actually the email I was referring to. That Famatinas ang copy pa rin, members. That's the one I was referring to. Short recess.